fans, and we think they're really going to like this team. We've got a lot of hardworking, talented, hungry dream chasers that I think they're going to connect with. You look outside, and it's an incredible setup. And before I move on, I want to thank all the people that go put a lot into this training camp. I show back up in the building, and I say, glad to be back. And there's a lot of people who didn't leave. And they're the people who make training camp happen. They're grinding away while we're on a beach somewhere. And so I want to really be thankful to them. And if you've seen it, it's first class, like a lot of things are in this organization. And that's a credit to the Wilfs, but also the pride that people here take in their work. And we're excited to get going. Before break, I got a text from Harrison Phillips, and he said, Kwesi, I can't wait to get these pads on. And I think that just says what we all feel. We love this sport, and training camp is a time where we get to see guys in an environment that's real football, and we're excited to learn and grow and do all those things with our group. Kevin has put together an incredible plan, detailed, intentional, really set to optimize our players, and not just in an evaluation sense, but to make them the best version of themselves. And again, that's just a great credit to Kevin, Tyler, his staff, and all the work they put into this. We, in walking around the building, obviously you see players, you dap them up and you say hello, how's your summer, all that stuff. And there's a lot of guys who were on a personal mission this summer. A lot of guys who really bought into what we were talking about, the goals we set for them, player development wise, and things like that. And we're really excited to get out there and see what they look like on the field and get going. But as always, I have a great personnel staff that is hungry, determined, dedicated, and we're going to adapt to new information. We're always going to try and evolve and shape this roster in the chase of our goals. And with that, do you have any questions?
How's Kevin's mentality kind of entering his first training camp as a head coach, and kind of this is when it really starts to get real kind of?
Competitors like Kevin, I don't think there's some seminal moment coming. He's been ready for this for a long time. He is incredibly detailed. I show up in his office, and obviously he'll be in there with Wes or O'Hara or somebody like that, and they're just talking in detail about plays, ready for reaction to this play, counters to this. They're in full season mode, and we're excited. As his friend, I think now that we're pretty close, I'm excited to see him fulfill his dream. Just like I got to call players at the draft and be the one to kind of start their NFL dream, I'm excited to watch him become the coach's first NFL game. And so as a friend, it's exciting to watch up close.
Back in March, you mentioned a competitive rebuild approach to this. Do you have a realistic expectation for what this team can do this year? Do you have to get through this camp to kind of figure that out?
Ultimately, we set this goal to get in the dance, to give ourselves a chance to be one of the last teams standing, and that's what we're trying to be. We're always trying to push that agenda. As you said, we go through training camp and we learn and we mold and we evolve, and ultimately you always have to adapt to new information. But we feel good about where we are roster-wise, the flexibility we have in different things.
Kwesi, whenever you do a competitive rebuild, you're doing it, maybe you're doing a long-term, but also you got to look at this year. And it's a Vikings team. How much do you weigh, or how much impact is what the Packers are doing right now with Aaron Rodgers, two-time MVP, back-to-back?
You want to consider? That's a great question. You want to consider all factors. The first path to getting in that dance is winning your division, right? So you want to be sure that you're mindful of the different changing dynamics that are happening in the NFL at large, but also close to you. So that's one of a lot of factors we consider, but you do in a team building kind of horizon exercise to consider a lot of factors. The best thing that you can do, though, is build the best team you can for the foreseeable future, and that's really the core focus of what we do.
Is that related to the quote that circulated yesterday about not going full Rams? Is that not wanting to give up too much of the future to sacrifice and basically not going all in, per se? Yeah,
that was probably not the best turn of phrase. I think in my evolution as GM, I'll be better. I have a great deal of respect for the Rams and what they've done, obviously, and what they've been able to accomplish. What I was trying to say, to your point, was that in football, a lot of times we tell ourselves that we're there, that this is the year, and there's an oblong ball, there's variance to the sport, there's variance to injuries. So to be able to put all your chips in at the poker table is a lot of times not wise. You want to be able to do it at 2, 3, 4 times so that you can win 1 or 2. That's just kind of how the odds work. If you look at the Patriots and their great one, they got to the game a lot more times than they won the game. And so that's ultimately what I meant. And just, I probably didn't use the best turn of phrase. I'm going to do what my wife tries to tell me sometimes and say less, so I'll say less.
There's not a lot of hitting in training camp, and things are different. How, as a GM, are you going to judge that you have the right talent in the right position?
We do get tackling in preseason games, but to your point, a lot of what you have to do is imaginative, but you have to do that a lot in evaluation. You have to decide when you're watching a quarterback what would have happened if that player had made that block and he was able to step up. So a lot of things we do is kind of projecting onto a play. So when you're watching a player who can't make the tackle, is he in the right tackle position for the opportunity? Is he attacking the right leverage? Is he getting the right opportunities? And ultimately, you're right, you do have to see if one point he can wrap it up. And a lot of times you use past data, but you have to use the data that you have at your disposal. But ultimately, every team has that same issue, right? So we just got to be better than all the other teams at it.
Kwesi, talked a lot about the partnership with Kevin and someone you consider a friend. How do you maintain that, but also evaluate the job that he's doing, in his first year?
It's everything is so interconnected in football, right? It's hard to separate the personnel from the coach and what's going on in the team. I just know that we have this partnership where we sit side by side when we make major decisions in this team, and I couldn't be more happy with what he is, the detail, the attention, the reason why. I'm very big on process over results, so I will always ask him questions on the why. And once the why is, between the both of us, we come to a mutual conclusion. It doesn't really matter what happens after that. I've owned the decision with him, and we're arm in arm together, and that's how I plan to operate as we go forward.
Is that how you see the conversations going in the summer when you're evaluating roster, making roster decisions, eventually final cuts? I mean, what's the sort of the process you're setting up for those decisions that have to be made almost daily?
Yeah. So again, it's very collaborative. I just finished our calendar and all those things, and we get a lot of information input from our scouts, the people who are around them in football operations, for the coaching staff, and we really just try and combine them into a consensus. But also, different people have different time horizons and different objectives, I guess, when they're looking at these things, and we got to make sure that we're doing them for the Vikings within our plan and our vision. And again, Kevin is involved in those conversations along with Rob and a lot of other great people in this organization, and we'll be on the same page. A lot of the great part about what we do is we're ahead of things. We plan these things. These things aren't going to sort of come up by chance. So a lot of the things we've talked about, the moves we've made, were to know where we would be at the cut down, to know what we'll look like in 23, and so those things I don't perceive being an issue.
Do you envision daily discussions about the roster and about today's practice and that sort of thing? Do you think you'll be involved at that level?
I wouldn't say daily, just because I think you want to make sure that you're getting enough information. You're also I have to give myself time to collect that information, right? I'm part cog in the process and also leader of the process. And so we have set times to really go through and make these decisions, and we have a pretty good plan in place.
I don't know how much you've looked at what they did before during training camp or what have you, but anything the fans or the media going to see that might be different or unique this camp, or what?
I can't say that I know too much about what happened previously, but I think fans should be excited about what they're going to see. I keep joking that it looks like Roland Garros out there, or the RG was saying maybe the Kentucky Derby, but it's a beautiful setup. We've got a lot of players who are excited to be here. We got a positive environment. It's going to be fun. That's all I can say. I know that it's going to be fun, and I don't really want to speak to what was before.
In the USA Today piece, you mentioned that, or it was mentioned that you view player evaluation in the draft not as here's the set trajectory for each player, but that each player has a certain probability of different outcomes. When it comes to roster decision-making for the final 53, do you view the players on the roster that way? And also, if you do, how do you avoid decision paralysis for, say, some of those middle 25 players if there's like 80 different outcomes for each player?
That's a great question. Yeah. Ultimately, you do try and assign a probability, right? And it's not just the probability or the outcome that you think you're going to get this year. It could be, it could be 23, 24, and also making sure that it aligns with your time horizon and your goals. The decision paralysis piece is potentially an issue, but we have a really detailed process. That's why we collect so much information. And ultimately, when you get on the margins, a lot of those decisions are 55-45, 60-40 at best, and you live with them knowing that you have a great process, you understand why, and having the coaching having somebody like Kevin up at my side, having us all involved, you can make decisions happen, if you know what I mean. Like, there's a 60-40 decision, but if you're aligned in it, you can withstand the variance of the day, the ups and the downs, and we're going to do everything we can to make that a 70-30 and 80-20. So I don't worry so much about those decisions.
When you get to those 55-45 decisions, how do you know the decision that you're making, because small margins, how do you know the decision you're making is on the 55 side?
Oh, you don't. I mean, I don't know that anybody would stand up here and tell you that, or somebody with my background would. I think you have a lot of historical precedent, evidence, information that leans it in your way, right? Leans it. I think we're on the right side of 50-50, but you always want to be humble. You always want to be updating yourself with information. It's just like when you're at a poker table and maybe you put your money in and you think he's bluffing, you get enough information, he's not bluffing, it's time to move on. And so I think we always want to be adaptive, malleable in how we think about these things, but you want to be confident but humble. It's kind of that duality that makes a great decision-making organization.
If you're making decisions on players, how much weight goes into training camp versus kind of almost overweighting it because it's the last thing you saw?
Such a great question. It's we have a personnel meeting tomorrow where I'm going to talk about that and say less, right? I'm supposed to say less, but I think. In a math sense, Bayesian or whatever, right? You come in with the belief about what you think somebody is. And every new data point you get is some new information. Now, how do you change your prior belief based on that new information you got? Well, how much was that new information? How different was that new information from your prior belief? Those are all things you got to kind of factor in. Thankfully, I've had experience in the NFL doing this, also in other organizations, and feel good about the process we have in place. But again, that's a great question. It's difficult. There's a lot of chance to have a recency bias and things like that, or be overconfident, overhopeful. And again, we have a lot of process in place to stop that.
Kwesi, you're talking about practicing on saying less. What's the harm?
And we've been listening to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, of course, the new GM for the Vikings on this first day of training camp. Stay right there. We're coming right back.